Black men age 15 to 24, suicide is the third leading cause of death.
Wow.
And from 2013,
I don't want us to run past it.
Yeah.
The third
Yeah.
leading cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for all the conversation about gang activity and
That's right.
HIV and all those things, and those are things we need to be aware of
sure.
and addressing. But wow, that's pretty astounding.
Yeah, and again, part of the challenge is for men. The question is, where are you safe to let your hair down, so to speak?
Gotcha.
I mean, for many, it might be the barbershop. But outside of that, who can I really talk to
Sure.
when I'm really having a difficult time?
Right. What's good, everybody? It is Friday, which means it's time for the Weekend Exhale with BOL. I'm Pastor Debleaire Snell, and I'm excited to welcome you to our latest episode of Soul Food. For those who are not sure what Soul Food is, it is a show that has literally been carved out and crafted with the mental and emotional wellness of God's people in mind. Listen, we do a lot, man, to really be able to feed the mind and to be able to feed the spirit. But we believe that these conversations that we have, they're going to nourish, feed, and revive the soul. And we believe it's going to be some great soul food. Now, I do want to say this from the onset, that what you hear is not designed to diagnose. It is simply a forum where some general principles and ideas can be shared. But we want to encourage you, if you're in need of a diagnosis or more acute awareness, to see your physician or local mental health professional. Now, friends of mine, I want you to do me a favor, because we're going to dive into something deep. It's going to be a little heavy tonight, but I believe it is going to be an edifying conversation. But I do need you to quickly be a digital disciple, be an Apple apostle. Even if you have the Android anointing, you can still help. Go ahead and copy the link and send it to somebody that they might be blessed as well. And so tonight, we're going to, again, deal with something that can be a little uncomfortable to talk about. But one of the things I realized, and God said it through the book of Hosea, he said, my people are destroyed by a lack of knowledge. We're never destroyed by knowing, but we're actually harmed by ignorance in the things that we do not know. And so tonight, we're going to really be talking about just the issue of suicide, some of the myths, the things that we assume, false assumptions. And we're going to really kind of get to what drives people to that very, very difficult place. And I'm grateful to have as our guest tonight, one of our resident mental health contributors, Dr. Martin Hodnett. Good to see you in the house this evening, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Man, glad to have you back with us. For those who don't know, Dr. Hodnett, he is a graduate of Oakwood University with a bachelor's in psychology. He went on to receive a master's and a PhD in psychology from Loma Linda University. He currently serves as a professor and the chair of psychology right here at Oakwood University. He is a preacher of the gospel in his own way. And one of his life's missions is to make Jesus Christ known and to help people understand God's plan and purpose for the heart, the mind, and the soul. And we feel like, man, he is, uniquely equipped to lead us in our conversation tonight. Not only is he academically prepared, he is spirit-filled. One of my favorite brothers on planet Earth. Glad to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
So listen, man, we're going to jump into it. Like I said, it's kind of a heavy conversation, but I believe that it is a needed one. So, I ran across some studies, and this came from a study from Brown University. And it essentially said that in North America, suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in North America. It is the second leading cause of death for individuals between the age of 20 and 34. And the suicide rate increased about 37% between the year 2000 and 2018. There have been some fluctuations up and down since then, but that's a pretty big leap in an 18-year span. And so I really felt compelled, and I think even when you look at some of the information around the suicide rate in our community, the African-American community, it's pretty ominous. And so I guess I wanted to begin the conversation tonight asking the question, what is the most misunderstood thing about the processing of someone who is dealing with suicidal ideation, or maybe thinking along those lines, or maybe have made an attempt somewhere along the way?
Sure. I think one of the challenges in looking at why a person would get to the point of where they want to, and I guess want to is not really the right word.
Sure.
I think in many cases, some people feel as though they don't have many options.
Sure.
And if I could just kind of pivot and say, I think it has a lot to do with hope.
Yeah.
And the lack thereof, almost like we're in a pandemic of loss of hope.
Wow.
If you look at some of the reasons why people get to that place in terms of even depression, one of the things, one of the early psychiatrists looking at depression from a cognitive behavioral perspective basically laid it out was people have negative thoughts about themselves, about their environment, and specifically about the future that lays before them. Yeah. And so if you lose hope in terms of good things happening, things getting better, then after a while, it's as if you want to escape that reality. And for some, I've known that I've looked at different scenarios and different individuals' experience. And one of the things I find in looking at why they actually commit suicide, for some, they're just so tired.
Yeah.
And
so there's a soul fatigue. That becomes unbearable at a certain point.
Yeah. And I think many of us can understand why someone, if they are in constant, excruciating physical pain, would get to the point where they are just saying, I can't take it anymore. But for some, then they're also in emotional and mental excruciating distress.
Yeah.
It might be after some kind of abuse or some kind of trauma that they've experienced. And so in the aftermath of that, they get to the point where they just can't take it anymore. And so for some, it really is a means of escape, trying to escape the overwhelming, excruciating discomfort emotionally and mentally that they may be going through.
Yeah. So in that sense that there are not options, is that always, or is that just maybe their perception that there are no options? Or is it, does it usually reflect that circumstantially or relationally a person is actually out of options?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the perception of options. Okay. I think we always have other options. The question is, what do I perceive or what do I see around me as a viable option that I can actually engage in? One of the things that can happen when a person becomes depressed, sometimes that you're not necessarily aware of all the options. Yeah. For many who have either attempted suicide or in some cases been successful, one of the things that you'll see is that people in the aftermath said, if I would have only known, I would have, provided a safe place or asked questions or followed up. And so in some cases, the individuals are unable to see or know all the people who really do care about them and that provide options. They just didn't perceive it to be actually there. Man,
and you talked about just, I guess, a deficit of hope. And it's interesting because, we live in this world where it's just slowly being subtracted. It's interesting just sometimes even sitting down, looking at the news every day, just the litany of negatives or pathologies or the things that are just hitting you in waves on social media. There was a time where that would have seemed strange, but I guess as I age, I kind of see how if you're dealing with it in your personal inner world, and you're looking at what's happening in the outer world combined, I can see how things can kind of really spiral quickly.
Absolutely. I know for my own mental health, I have to try to consume news in a different way just because at the end of the day, when the news is typically broadcast, you're coming home to that. That's not going to help you emotionally and mentally. So that is a challenge. And I think as we go forward in Earth's history, people are going to need to find places of hope, places where they can go to be able to hear that things can get better, and even to the extent that they can not just hear about the gospel, but that they can have people who actually care about them.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges, and particularly in this environment, as you will know, and I talk to my students about this, is that we often conflate or confuse friends with acquaintances.
Yeah.
And so we can be surrounded by many people who we think are our friends, but the question is, when you have really heavy things to talk about, who do you perceive that is a safe person to actually take those to and talk with them about? So I think to the extent that individuals are needing that, that's going to be a really key point going forward.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how you can have 10,000 social media acquaintances and not really have one real friend or someone you can share with or be vulnerable? That's pretty astounding.
It is. And I think it really speaks to the fact that in order to have those spaces, we have to be very intentional.
Sure.
And very focused on making sure that the people around us, even our own households, our communities, know that we are there for them and able to talk about difficult things.
Yeah. So Dr. Hodnett, so I've unfortunately seen, I guess, with some consistency, individual attempt suicide or they commit suicide, and immediately there is this who's to blame conversation that begins to, take place. Who should have seen? How come nobody caught this? So on and so forth. I think sometimes if it's a young person, parents blame themselves. If it's a spouse, that existing or surviving spouse blames themselves. And really at that point in time, there's no really blame to be assigned. I think it's a time to come together and begin the journey of grieving and or healing. So, but I guess my question is, are there any specific warning signs that we need to pay attention to? Are there things that people say or do that should maybe tip us off? Are there things that we generally maybe just kind of, joke off or shrug off when in truth there are some real warning signs that, are saying it's that person's way of announcing that they're in trouble?
Sure. A lot of times if we are not aware of those, then we can absolutely miss it.
You miss them, sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, granted, sometimes an individual will just come out and say that they want to kill themselves or that they wish they weren't alive or they wish they hadn't been born.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, that's absolutely something to pay attention to. But sometimes it can be a bit more subtle. Sometimes they may...
Even if they say that in an offhanded kind of way, it's still something to be taken seriously.
I think so.
Yeah.
Obviously based on my background educationally, there's some things that are red flags no matter what. Even if someone says it jokingly in a group of friends, I might in a moment take that person aside and just kind of dig a little bit just to kind of ensure that they're okay.
Yeah.
But if people are talking about wanting to die, or if they're talking about feeling shame or guilt or feeling like they don't want to be a burden to other people, maybe they might be feeling giving signs that they're feeling empty or hopeless or maybe even trapped or having no reason to live. Those can be some things, but also some behaviors, things like maybe, if they're searching on the internet, other places trying to find out ways to die or maybe planning certain things. I know when we're assessing for that, that's one of the things we're looking for is to see, does a person have a plan? Do they have the means to actually carry out that plan? And then other social things you might notice, things like them withdrawing from their friend group.
Withdrawing, okay.
Yes. I've even seen some things talking about, sometimes you might see some increased substance use, particularly from among black men or, for example, if they are not only having substance use issues, but then they're also doing it by themselves or kind of withdrawing and kind of secluding themselves.
Okay.
And even taking dangerous risk or displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping less or more.
Dangerous risk, like what?
Driving excessively fast.
Okay.
Doing things that they normally just wouldn't actually typically do, but it seems like they're kind of playing loose, fast and loose with life.
So then it's a little bit more of an outlier from their normal rhythm. So you have a person that's maybe generally adventurous. They like to skydive and bungee jump.
Right.
But someone who is generally safe, risk averse, and you see them acting a little bit more of a reckless way.
Right.
Okay.
And for a lot of this is what we're looking to see and what changes are taking place. Like for the example, the eating or sleeping, it could be that the person sleeps more, or it could be that they sleep less. But what's their norm, and are they diverting from what they typically would do under normal circumstances?
Gotcha. Wow, that's very helpful. And I think that's probably shedding a lot of insight, and not for us to panic, but to be attentive, and so that we can show compassion when it is needed and warranted. So, Doc, one of the questions is, especially when you see the increase of suicide attempts or suicide amongst young people. And it's interesting because, those of us who are probably a certain age, we look at, the young people of this day, and we probably perceive their life as being easier than ours, and they probably have more advantages and liberties and so on and so forth, comforts than we had. And you probably wonder, what's so hard about your life? But at the same time, you see this spike and you see this trend. What are some of the cultural things that are happening with young people that are kind of bringing them to that place where they feel like this is the best or only option?
Sure. There's a couple of things.
Okay.
Particularly for adolescents and young adults, one of the things that is really important to them is their social circle.
Yeah.
To what extent are they accepted? And if there are things like bullying, or if they're being ostracized by their peer groups, that can be extremely traumatic for them at that time.
Sure.
There can be other things going on, things like early adverse childhood experiences, things like if they've witnessed domestic violence, or if they've been in places where there's a lot of violence in the community, or poverty. There's a whole host of things that can play into that. But it also may be that for some, one of the things that we're noticing is the increase of screen use.
Screen use. Okay.
And in some cases, we're trending toward addiction.
Okay.
This past summer, the Journal of American Medical Association, I believe they put out an article that spoke about the connection between increased screen use and suicidal ideation in adolescents.
Wow.
And really the main thrust of that particular article was suggesting that particularly when individuals are using it in a way that is a kind of a coping strategy, perhaps, that they may have increased suicidal ideation. So when we're saying suicidal ideation, we're thinking of in terms of they have thoughts of committing suicide. And we know that that's important red flag to take note of, because obviously you think of something before you actually do it, whatever the behavior is. The thing I want to also bring up is that particularly for African American youth, we've
actually, before you shift, can I ask a quick question? Because I'm just wondering if somebody's listening and saying, well, I watched a lot of TV growing up, but I didn't quite move there. What is it specifically about these devices that maybe have a different, I guess, pathology to it than just maybe, the previous generation that watched television? Like, is it just what they are watching? Like, what is it that is driving that train of thought that kind of makes this a primary or, one of the first options?
Yeah, I think the challenge for many is that in times past, if you wanted to watch TV, you had to go to the family room or to the main place to watch. If you wanted to watch a movie in the old days, you had to go to a theater. Now we have in our hands a jukebox, a theater. I mean, we got it all right there in your hand, 24/7, 365. So for some, I've seen some individuals talk about in terms of parenting, the need to take phones in the evenings, and not let the children go to bed with their phone like teenagers or whatever. They want to always have their phone on them. So I think that's one aspect, but then the constant use of it. I challenge parents to check their your young people's screen time, like how much time are they actually spending on the phone. Then the other thing is, what are they looking at? So if they're looking at social media, and for some, they may see things that depict people living perfect lives.
Yeah.
And we all know that
Right.
obviously social media is
Sure.
depicting people's projection of what they want other people to know. But for some, if they are, let's say, not having a lot of friends, or if they have things, that they may not necessarily have the number of friends or following as others. And so there's things dealing with comparisons, even body image and other things that they may be seeing.
Right.
But I think inherent in this particular article from that I just quoted a minute ago, it has a lot to do, I think, with the reason why they're doing things. So, for example, food is not bad.
Right.
Watching television isn't necessarily bad, but the question is, how is it used?
Sure.
So, entertainment, watching ESPN isn't bad, but the question is, why are we doing it?
Right.
And for some, they're using it as a means of coping. And so the question is, are there other coping strategies that they could use that would help them navigate the challenges that they face? And obviously there are, but for those who don't necessarily have a large selection to choose from,
Sure.
it may seem as if this is one of the few options that they have.
Wow. Any thoughts on, and I know that, we're not asking you to diagnose, but any thoughts on, is there an age that is too early in your mind where a young person should be permitted or, to really engage in social media and with all that comes with it in terms of the comparisons, the messaging, the bullying? It's funny. I don't think I got on Facebook till I was probably 31 or 32, I think, and I may have been a little. I know I was living in Kentucky at the time, so I think I was probably about 31, and even then it was kind of like, all right, you know.
Yeah, it's very different for us because some of us remember MySpace and some of the old things
High
that
five,
the things that used to be out there, but it wasn't something that we grew up on. I think that's one of the things I'm observing in the classroom as I engage with students is they've been raised on it. And so it's very different from the group I first started teaching when I first came to Oakwood University. It was that they were not raised on it. And so the dependence is very different. And it obviously impacts our ability, particularly if they're using it to the extent that they're not really able to have social or develop social skills. Friends and other things like that may become a little bit more difficult for them. So I think looking forward, in terms of the age, I think parents obviously have to make those decisions for themselves. I would say that if your child is using social media, you definitely need to know what's going on.
Need to know what's going on.
And be in those DMs and make sure they're not getting
You got to be in the DMs.
Receiving messages from, we know that child predators and other individuals will use that as a means to access children. So I think it would be something that the parent and would definitely need to be aware of what's happening. But personally, I don't have any children, but if I did, I know this may sound kind of extreme, but I would think in terms of high school at the earliest, just because before that, that may be a way to connect, but I think developing social skills and other ways to connect and operate in the world is more important in those formative years.
I got you.
Suicide is a heavy conversation, and we hope that if you are in a crisis moment that you have someone you can reach out to, and we'll make sure that some details are shared for that as well. This is what we hope to be not only a deep conversation, a religious conversation, a Christian conversation, but a conversation that really helps you to understand a little bit better this thing that plagues us, not only in the Black community, but in all communities. Definitely want to make sure that you are joining us next week for another episode of Soul Food, where we talk about depression, another heavy conversation, but we feel that as believers, we have an onus and a responsibility to make sure we talk about some of these things. With that said, let's get back to our conversation.
And I think you're about to shift into kind of what I'm about to ask.
Sure.
So I think we've also seen, a rise in suicide attempts or just suicide practices amongst African Americans, I think specifically men, in recent years, and it's been well documented, discussed quite a bit. It's funny because I think there's probably a time, and there's probably a certain amount of ignorance in that where we kind of felt like this was not something that was prevalent in our communities.
Correct.
Maybe even kind of thought that because we're a little bit more tied to the church or God, that's why it's not happening. And maybe it just wasn't discussed. I'm not sure. But, what's happening in the world of a young African-American man, or just say African-Americans in general now, where we're saying this is the best way.
Yeah. It's a very concerning time. That's the word I'll use. Very concerning. We all know that in the Earth's history, particularly here in the U.S., African Americans have not had an easy time of it.
Sure,
this is nothing new. But I think what has changed is that social media access, 24/7 access to media, has heightened the exposure of things like the Tamir Rice incidents, George Floyd, and even being able to literally witness the death of someone on screen. I can remember, even as an adult, a couple years ago, I happened to come across some footage, and I have to tell you, it hits different when you know that this is not fake.
It's not fake. I agree. Agreed. Yep.
And so when you have access to that kind of thing, and it's heightened in the news and it's being repeated and amplified, I think it hits different. One of the things that we've seen, and this idea of systemic racism and discrimination is been something that has existed here for some time, obviously in the U.S., but we're able to not only experience it, but also see evidence of it in the news, in the media, and even in our personal and family's experience. So we believe that's one of the contributing factors to what we're seeing in terms of the rise in suicides, particularly among African-American youth. One of the things I wanted to share just briefly is for Black men age 15 to 24, suicide is the third leading cause of death.
Wow.
And from 2013.
I don't want us to run past it. The third leading cause of death. And so, for all the conversation about gang activity and
that's right.
HIV and all those things, and those are things we need to be aware of and addressing. But wow, that's pretty astounding.
Yeah, and again, part of the challenge is for men. The question is, where are you safe to let your hair down, so to speak?
Gotcha.
I mean, for many, it might be the barbershop. But outside of that, who can I really talk to when I'm really having a difficult time?
Right.
For some, I've seen some conversation about the need to project strength, not to look weak. And so if you are able to have a safe place to be able to talk and not feel judged, and not be thought to be weak. For some, that are blessed to have perhaps spouses or others in their circle that they feel they can talk to. But I've heard many indications and examples where individuals are married and don't feel as though they can really truly let the wall down and show what's really going on in a safe way without feeling judged or having it used against them later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
But for African American males, one of the things that we've noticed from 2013 to 2019 is a rate of increase of 50%. 50%. So ages 15 to 24, we've been seeing the increase about 50%. And one of the things that we've noticed is that amongst the increase of individuals, one of the things they were looking at from, I think it was 2007 to 2020, is they were looking at an increase for adolescents. Basically, it was about 144% increase, which is the highest of any demographic.
Wow.
And so there is a great concern within the African American community in that these are things that, as you said, typically we have thought that those were outside of our community, but we're seeing increasingly that these are things that directly impact our youth and our men.
Wow, that's those are some sobering and, like you said, concerning truths. So if we could turn the corner a little bit, so if somebody's trying to be attentive, they're noticing some of the warning signs or causes for concern or the departures from the norms, and they want to intervene successfully. What are some steps to, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, kind of creating a responsible, safe intervention to hopefully help someone turn? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think some of the groundwork, unfortunately, needs to be done ahead of time.
Okay.
In the sense that the person needs to be able to trust you.
Gotcha.
And know that you care about them
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah.
Such that when you approach them, they know those things already off the bat.
Yeah.
And then to be able to feel safe and not judged is something that's going to need to be in place. But I think one of the things is sometimes individuals are really hesitant and reticent to actually talk about suicide.
Sure.
But actually, that's exactly the thing that needs to take place.
Okay.
To hit it head on and ask the individual, have you had thoughts of harming yourself or committing suicide? And you can phrase it however you want, but
Yeah.
to really just go and ask them straight up, with tact and nuance,
Sure.
of course,
Yeah.
but and not shy away from it. So that's one thing. But I think for those who are looking to kind of see what's going on with their young people, I think obviously paying attention in this environment. Oftentimes we're very busy, and we might see people or family members, even who live in the same house, kind of in a passing way, but to really be tuned in to know what's going on for them,
Yeah.
and have a relationship that would invite dialogue or them being able to share. Sometimes, kids unfortunately might think they might get in trouble. And so to be able to talk to them and let them know that you're not going to be in trouble. I'm really concerned about you, and I want to know that you're okay. And to be able to have those kinds of conversations and remain connected. Unfortunately, I hate to harp on this, but I think in some ways screens have created a barrier in many of our homes.
Yeah.
And so to be able to pull down the screen
Right.
and on a daily basis and have time for interaction and connection is going to be key to
Yeah.
knowing when there's a shift with your young person or whoever the person is in your life, to be able to know when something's different. Because if they're in their room all the time and that's the norm, how
Right.
would you know if things are shifting? Or you ask them how their day's been and they say fine, and you just move on and don't really follow up. I think being able to have ongoing open conversations and letting them know that as parents and as loved ones, that we're interested in what's going on with them. And it's not just something that's passing, but it's
Yeah.
something that we are deeply interested
Yeah.
in their well-being.
So let's just say, I'm just trying to kind of think through a number of scenarios. A friend or sibling, a loved one, they're talking to someone, they begin opening up about having thoughts of suicide. For the average person, I'm assuming that sounds horrifying and
Sure.
overwhelming and out of their range. Is it appropriate for them to call another loved one, to call a pastor or a guidance counselor, a teacher, or would that be seen as a betrayal of trust? Because I guess I'm thinking about that person that's getting this news and panicking. How do they bring in someone that can help facilitate a journey of healing?
Yeah.
I guess without feeling like they're telling, not holding confidence. I guess could you maybe speak to that if that makes sense?
Yeah, it really does. And unfortunately,
Or a counselor, hopefully, or a therapist.
Yeah, fortunately for me, most teachers, those who are work in the public sector, are mandated reporters, so they don't really have a choice.
Right.
But for someone who does have a choice, you have to ask yourself, which would you rather?
Yeah.
Which would you rather?
Gotcha.
Would you rather them be mad at you?
Yeah.
Which, with time, and
Yeah.
you might be able to repair that. But if you don't say anything, what's the danger there?
Yeah.
And so the question is sometimes, are we more concerned about if people are happy or angry with us, or are we more concerned about them?
Yeah.
And so, parents and other individuals know that they have to sometimes do things that their loved ones are not happy
Sure.
with
Yeah.
for their good.
Yeah.
So I would say one of the things that I would suggest is if an individual does find out that a loved one has had suicidal ideation or has thoughts of thoughts of killing themselves and even a plan, then yes, pulling in a licensed clinician would be the thing to do.
Yeah.
For sure. And not waiting.
Yeah.
For sometimes individuals will try to convince you that it's all good and they don't need to have any intervention. But in that, I think it's always better to err on the side of caution. And I would definitely be careful, obviously, about sharing that information with just everybody,
generally,
even within the extended family and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do think having a trusted clinician to speak with, a licensed clinician, would be definitely the move. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned other individuals, and that's fine if the person has a good connection or good relationship with them. But I wouldn't leave off the licensed clinician.
No. I think, that's definitely the ideal.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think of who that friend or sibling may have immediate contact or connection with. Because, I still think in many of African-American homes, my sense is still that most people don't know or connected with a licensed clinician. But I'm just trying to figure out how to get them connected with somebody that could be a bridge.
Sure.
Hopefully to that.
Sure.
It's ultimately what I was getting at.
Yeah, and those would be definitely good resources if you're trying to make that initial connection. I mean, you can always go to the internet, look at psychologytoday.com and find a local clinician in your area.
Yeah.
But outside of that would be another way, and they may even have a particular clinician in mind that they could recommend.
Yeah. So if you're an adult, you're a parent, and of course that's the first step. I'm just thinking, a teenage, sibling or just a friend who's just saying, all right, how do I can't handle this. How do I get them connected with somebody that can help them?
Sure.
And who's in that immediate sphere or immediate reach, I guess, is what I was trying to think.
And I think in that, obviously you want to reach out and help them access someone who is qualified to assist them. But also I think helping them to know that even if you do so against their wishes, it's not because of anything other than that you love them.
You love them, yeah.
And you want them around.
Yeah. I mean, I think, real love is willing to kind of agitate people at times. And sometimes to be to be a real friend, you got to be willing to alienate a friend temporarily.
Yeah.
And if it's a real friendship, it'll survive that.
Absolutely.
Especially if the person gets the needed help that they need. So as we get ready to land the plane, if there is somebody listening that they're listening to this and saying, I'm kind of seeing myself in this conversation, or I'm seeing my son, I'm seeing my friend, I'm seeing my spouse. What are some resources or just a path to help that maybe you could lay out before us? I know you can't do it in an exhaustive way, can't speak to every circumstance or predicament, but just generally, what are some things or resources that people can look for?
Sure. Some of the easiest resource to reach out to would actually be 988. Calling 988.
988. Okay.
988 is a number to call for mental health assistance resources. They, of course, are there for suicide helpline, but then also they offer additional resources in your community. And so they would be a quick and easy way to start that initial conversation, whether it's something that's immediate or something that you see as being something that you need to kind of look into for the long term.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anyone who is kind of, just so that maybe we can end on a note that's a little bit more hopeful, that was in that dark place on the precipice, but they were able to get connected with resources, surrounded by community, and they're living a healthy, fruitful, meaningful existence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does happen and it can happen, but what stands out to me for those cases that I'm thinking about is that there were loved ones who caught it.
Okay.
Loved ones who recognized what was going on. Loved ones who helped bridge the gap and connect them with treatment such that they could begin to get on the road to recovery. And so, it's absolutely possible, but it really requires people who are courageous enough to step up and actually engage them in difficult situations or conversations, I should say, and be able to direct them in the way that they need to go. Yeah.
So, I really appreciate, this dialogue. It's, it's serious and it's heavy, but I think, I guess I want our audience to know that it touches all people, even religious people. I think of the prophet Elijah when you talk about that fatigue, where I think after fire comes down from heaven, he overthrows the prophets of Baal. I think he's anticipating a return, a revival in Israel, but that's not what happens. Jezebel is even more determined, and I think that there's just a weariness. He has just been at this so long. But the Bible says he just sits up under that tree, and he just longs for death. Like that's what he wants. That's where he is. Or Job being so discouraged in the midst of his affliction, where he curses the day he was born. And so I just think that even the heroes of faith, are challenged and touched by it. So, black people aren't exempt, spiritual people aren't exempt, wealthy people aren't exempt. It can touch us no matter where we are or our loved ones. And so, Pastor, if you could just, Doctor, I put you, you are an elder in the church. So Elder, if you don't mind just sharing a word of hope, maybe just to somebody who is just, maybe they see themselves in this conversation. If you just kind of maybe share a word and kind of let them know what can be on the other side of where they are presently.
Yeah. Ultimately, all of us go through things in our lives that cause us to be weary, cause us to sometimes lose hope. And no matter what people are facing, whether you might be going through a difficult time, it is something that is temporary. And if through the grace of God, you can hold on and connect with others in your community, those who love you, we know that in community, we can make it through anything. And so I would just encourage you, if you are contemplating suicide or you have had thoughts of suicide, don't hold it in. Reach out to someone who is in your circle and let them know what you've been feeling, what you've been thinking, and seek help, and don't suffer alone, because we know that when we do so, it creates a place that is very difficult to come from.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Hodnett, if somebody wanted to follow up with you, if they want to get a little bit more information, guidance, is there a particular way where they may be able to reach you?
Sure. Via email would be the easiest way. And they can reach out to me via my email address, which is mhodnett@oakwood.edu. That would be the most direct way to connect with me. And
it's coming up there on the screen.
Okay. And that would be what I would recommend.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your insights and, the way that God is raising up spiritual men and women who have these competencies to help us deal with life in a powerful way that allows us to thrive. Listen, we thank you all so much for joining us for this evening's episode of Soul Food. We know it was heavy, but I'm praying that you got some insight, some greater understanding, and maybe just some cues and clues of what to look for in the life of the people that you love. And again, I just want to reiterate what Dr. Hodnett said. If you see yourself in this conversation, I do want you to know there is hope. There is a more excellent way. And just even the belief that there is no more hope, that there are no more options, I want you to know it is a satanic imagination, that there is a God who loves you. And even if you can't sense it right now, there is a community that loves you. And our hope is that you will be able to recognize what God said through the prophet Jeremiah. He says, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. Paul says you are God's masterpiece. And so I just want you to know that you are loved by God. You are loved by a community somewhere. But with the right resources and the right partnership, you can live a life that realizes all of its divinely appointed potential. So may God bless you. Pray that you have a fruitful Friday night, a tremendous weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week right here as we come to get a little bit more soul food.
We're so excited that you joined us tonight for another episode of the Weekend Exhale with BOL. I want to ask you a question. Did you know that Breath of Life also has kids content? That's correct. We have a show called Evie's Treehouse, and we want to make sure that you know about all the different things that Breath of Life has. And you can be informed by subscribing to the channel and ensuring that the notification bell is turned on. But you can also be further informed by going over to our website, breathoflife.tv. There you'll find resources, you'll find Bible studies, you'll also find the list of shows that we have in the Weekend Exhale for BOL, with BOL, but you'll also have an opportunity to partner with this ministry financially by heading over to the Donate tab. So we encourage you to do that right now. If this thing blessed you, tag a friend, text the link, ensure that this conversation doesn't just end here, that we hope that this serves as a launch pad for us to have some of these deep conversations within our families as well. Be blessed, and we'll see you next week.